Manjusri's Gatha teaching the appropriate method for human beings. As commanded, Manjusri rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of Buddha, and reverently chanted the following Gatha. Perfect and clear by nature is the Bodhi ocean. Pure and faultless Bodhi is in essence wonderful. Its fundamental brightness shone so by chance creating an object which then obscured its radiant nature. Thus, in delusion, there appeared one-sided emptiness, in which an imaginary world arbitrarily was built. Steadying itself, the thinking process made the continents, while the illusory knower became a living being. The voidness so created within Bodhi is but a bubble in the ocean, worldly. Realms, countless as the dust arose in this relative emptiness. When the bubble bursts, the void's unreality is exposed. How much more so is that of the three realms? Though all return to one nature at the source, there are many expedient methods for the purpose. Through holy nature pervades all. Direct or inverse methods are expedients. Hence, newly initiated minds of different aptitudes are quick or slow to enter samadhi, form which from what crystallizes is too difficult to look through. How can perfection be achieved? Through this impenetrable form. Sound, voice, word, and speech are each confined to specific definition, which by itself is not all-embracing. How can they help perfection to achieve? Smell, perceived when in contact with the nose, without the contact is non-existent. How can that which is not always present be a means to achieve perfection? Taste exists not of itself, but is perceived when flavor is present. Since sense of taste is ever varied, how can it to perfection lead? Touch exists when there's an object touched. Without an object, touch is not. Since contact and its absence are not constant, how can touch help to achieve perfection? Dharma is inner defilement called. Reliance thereon implies an object. Since subject and object are not all embracing, how can dharma lead one to perfection? The organ of sight, although perceiving clearly, sees things in front but cannot see behind. How can partial sight of the four quarters help one to achieve perfection? The inward and the outward breath have no link uniting them. How can they, thus unconnected, be used to achieve perfection? The tongue is useless, touching nothing. When flavor is present, there is taste, which vanishes when flavor is absent. How can this help to achieve perfection? Body must be conditioned to the object touched. Both cannot be used for all-embracing meditation, which is beyond both subject and object with their limits. How can this serve to achieve perfection? The tumult of thinking with the mind disturbs the serenity of right perception. Since stirring thoughts are most hard to eradicate, how can intellect serve to achieve perfection? Union of consciousness with eye and sight has three components that are not settled. How can that which is devoid of substance be used as a means to imperfection? The hearing mind, which reaches into space, needs a great cause for its development. But untrained men cannot realize it. How can this help to achieve perfection? Meditation on the nose is only an expedient, a means to control the mind by fixing it for the moment. But wrong dwelling can create an illusory abode. How can this be used to achieve perfection? Preaching the Dharma plays upon voice and words by awakening occurred during practice long ago. Words and speeches never going beyond the worldly stream. How can this be a means to achieve perfection? Observances of rules of discipline controls the body, but never that which is beyond it. Since control of body is not all-embracing, how can this serve to achieve perfection? Transcendental powers come from a former cause. How can they derive from discriminating consciousness? Since thinking from externals cannot stray, how can it serve to achieve perfection? If the element of earth be used for contemplation, it is solid and cannot be penetrated. Belonging to the worldly, it lacks spirituality. How can it be used to achieve perfection? If meditation be on the element of water, the thoughts that then arise have no reality. Beyond feeling and seeing is the absolute. How then can water help to achieve perfection? If for meditation the element of fire be used, dislike of desire is not complete renunciation. It's no expedient for newly initiated minds. How then can fire become a means to achieve perfection? If meditation is on the element of wind, motion and stillness are a false duality from which supreme Bodhi cannot develop. How can wind serve to achieve perfection? If the element of space be used for meditation, its dimness and dullness cannot be enlightenment. Since whatever is unenlightened differs much from Bodhi, how can the element of space help to achieve perfection? If on the element of consciousness you meditate, it changes and is not permanent. The mind fixed on it being false, how can that element then help you to achieve perfection? Phenomena are all impermanent. Thinking originally comes and goes. Since cause will ever differ from effect, how can the element of perception achieve perfection? I now submit to the world-honored one that all Buddhas in this world appear to teach the most appropriate method, which consists in using pervasive sound. The state of samadhi can be realized by means of hearing. Thus was Avalokiteshvara freed from suffering. Hail to the regarder of sound, who during eons countless as Ganga's sand entered as many Buddha lands to win the power and comfort of his independence and bestow fearlessness upon all living beings. O you who have achieved the sound profound, the seer of sound the purifier. Who, unfailing as the sound of ocean tides, saves all beings in the world, make them secure, ensure their liberation and attainment of eternity. Reverently I declare to the Tathagata what Avalokiteshvara said. When one dwells in quietude, rolls of drums from 10 directions simultaneously are heard, so hearing is complete and perfect. The eyes cannot pierce a screen, but neither can mouth nor nose. Body only feels when it is touched. Mind's thought are confused and unconnected. But voice, whether near or far, at all times can be heard. The 5 other organs are not perfect, but hearing really is pervasive. The presence or absence of sound and voice is registered by ear as is or is not. Absence of sound means nothing heard. Not hearing devoid of nature. Absence of sound is not the end of hearing, and sound when present is not its beginning. The faculty of hearing beyond creation and annihilation truly is permanent, even when isolated thoughts in a dream arise. Though the thinking process stops, hearing does not end, for the faculty of hearing is beyond all thought, beyond both mind and body. In this Saha world, teaching is by voice. Living beings who cognize not hearing's natures follow sound to continue transmigrating. Though Ananda memorized all that he had heard, he could not avoid perverted thoughts. This is to fall into samsara by clinging to sound. Whilst reality is one against the worldly stream, listen, Ananda, listen closely. In the name of Buddha, I proclaim the Vajra King of enlightenment, the inconceivable understanding that illusions are unreal, the true samadhi that begets all Buddhas. You may hear of esoteric methods from Buddhas countless as the dust, but if you cannot eradicate desire, to hear much causes errors. To hear your very self, why not turn backward? That faculty employed to hear Buddha's words. Hearing is not of itself, but owes its name to sound. Freed from sound by turning hearing backwards, what do you call that which is disengaged? When one sense organ has to its source returned, all the 6 senses thereby are liberated. Seeing and hearing are like optical illusions. Just as all 3 worlds resemble flowers in the sky, with hearing disengaged, the illusory organ vanishes. With objects eradicated, perfectly pure is Bodhi. In utter purity, the bright light pervades all. With its shining stillness enfolding the great void, all worldly things, when closely looked at, are but illusions seen in dreams. Dream-like was the Matangi maiden. How could she keep your body with her? Like a clever showman presenting a puppet play. Though movements are many, there is but one controller. When that control is stopped, figures show no nature. Likewise are these 6 organs, derived from one alaya, which divides into 6 unions. If one of these returns to source, all 6 functions are ended. With all infection ended, Bodhi is then realized. Any defiling remnant requires further study, whereas full enlightenment is the Tathagata. Ananda, and all you who listen here, should inward turn your faculty of hearing to hear your own nature, which alone achieves supreme Bodhi. That is how enlightenment is won. Buddhas as many as the Ganga's sand entered this one gateway to nirvana. All past Tathagatas have achieved this method. All bodhisattvas now enter this perfection. All who practice in the future on this dharma should rely. Avalokiteshvara did not practice it alone, because through it I also passed. The enlightened and the world-honored one has asked about the best expedients for those in the dharma-ending age who wish from samsara to escape in their search for nirvana's heart. It is best to contemplate on worldly sound. All other methods are expedients, used by Buddha in particular cases, to keep disciples from occasional trouble. They are not good for indiscriminate practice by men of different types. I salute the Tathagata store, which is beyond the worldly stream, blessed by coming generations, so that they have abiding faith in this easy expedient. It's good for teaching Ananda and those of dharma ending age, who should use the hearing organ which surpasses all others, and with the true mind accords. After hearing this, Ananda and the assembly felt their bodies and minds to be in tune with the profound teaching. To them, the Buddha's Bodhi and Parinirvana were like the way home, which a traveler should know well before returning from a long journey abroad. Others present, such as the 8 classes of non-human beings, students of Hinayana and Bodhisattvas who had just developed the Bodhi mind and whose number was countless as the sand in 10 Ganga rivers, awakened to their fundamental minds, avoided defilement and won the pure Dharma high. After hearing the Gatha, Bhikshuni self-nature realized Arhatship, and an uncountable number of living beings developed the unsurpassed Samyak Sambodhi mind. the enlightenment of others. Ananda adjusted his robe, brought his palms together, and prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha. He rejoiced at his good understanding of the mind, and, for the benefit of coming generations, bowed again and said, "O great, compassionate, and world-honored one, I have now awakened to the Dharma gateway to Buddhahood by means of right practice, about which I have no more doubt. I have always heard the Buddha speak of bodhisattvas who, before their own liberation, set their minds on freeing others, and of Buddhas who, after their own complete enlightenment, appeared in the world to enlighten others. Though I am not yet liberated, I now vow to deliver all living beings in the Dharma ending age. World-honored one, future generations will gradually move farther away from the Buddha and will meet heretics as many as the sand grains in the Gangas. In order to control their minds for entry into Samadhi, what should they do to set up seats of study and learning Bodhi Mandala to keep the demon away and avoid failure in their cultivation of the mind set on enlightenment?" The Buddha praised Ananda and said, "Excellent, excellent Ananda. It is good that you ask about the settling up of Bodhi Mandalas for the protection of living beings against failure in the Dharma ending age. Listen attentively to what I now tell you." Ananda and the assembly reverently awaited the holy teaching. Discipline and its three decisive steps: Sila, Dhyana, and Prajna. The Buddha said, "Ananda, you have always heard me teach about discipline, Vinaya, which consists in the practice of three decisive steps: the control of mind, called Sila, which leads to stillness, Dhyana, and thence to wisdom, Prajna. This is called the threefold study of the supra-mundane way. Prohibition against carnality. Ananda, why is control of mind called Sila? If all living beings in the six worlds of existence abstain from sexual desire, they will not be subject to the continual round of births and deaths. Your practice of Samadhi should free you from defilements, but they cannot be eliminated if your lustful mind is not wiped out. Even after you have acquired such wisdom, if you fail to kill sensuality, then when dhyana manifests, you will fall into the way of demons, in which their king takes the high, his male subjects, the middle, and his female subjects, the low rank. These demons have their following and boast of having attained the supreme path. After my nirvana, in the Dharma ending age, the subjects of Mara will be found everywhere, will encourage sensuality and will disguise themselves as men of good counsel, Kalyana Mitras, and cause living beings to fall into the pit of lust, thereby missing the Bodhi path. You should teach worldly men who practice Samadhi to cut off their lustful minds at the very start. This is called the Buddha's profound teaching of the first decisive deed. Therefore, Ananda, if carnality is not wiped out, the practice of dhyana is like cooking gravel to make rice. Even if it is boiled for hundreds and thousands of eons, it will be only hot gravel. Why? Because instead of rice grains, it contains only stones. If you set your lustful mind on seeking the profound fruit of Buddhahood, whatever you may realize will be carnal by nature. If your root is lustful, you will have to transmigrate through three unhappy ways to the hells of fire, blood, and swords, from which you will not escape. How then can you find the way to cultivate the Tathagata's nirvana? You should cut off both the sensual body and mind until even the very idea of doing so ceases. Only then can you hope to seek the Buddha's enlightenment. This teaching of mine is that of the Buddha, whereas any other one is that of evil demon Papya. Prohibition against killing. Ananda, if living beings in the six worlds of existence cease to kill, they will not be subject to the continual round of births and deaths. Your practice of Samadhi should free you from defilements, but if your murderous mind is not cut off, they cannot be eliminated. You may acquire much wisdom, but if you fail to stop killing, your dhyana manifests. You will fall into the ways of spirits, in which the high rank is attained by the mighty ghost, Preta, the middle one by flying yakshas and chief ghosts, and the low one by earthbound rakshasas. These have followers and boas that they have attained the supreme path. After my nirvana, in the Dharma ending age, these ghosts will be found throughout in the world and will boast of how they feed on flesh, which leads them to realize Bodhi. Ananda, I permit the bhikshus to eat only the 5 kinds of pure flesh, which are the product of my transcendental power of transformation and not of animal slaughter. You, Brahman, live in a country where vegetables do not grow because it is too damp and hot and because of all the gravel and rock. I use my spiritual power of compassion to provide you with illusory meat to satisfy your appetite. How then, after my nirvana, can you eat the flesh of living beings and so pretend to be my disciple? You should know that those who eat meat, though their minds may open and realize a semblance of samadhi, are but great rakshasas, who, after this life, will sink back into the bitter ocean of samsara and cannot be my disciples. They will kill and devour one another ceaselessly. How then can they escape from the 3 worlds of existence? In addition, you should teach worldly men who practice samadhi not to kill. This is called the Buddha's profound teaching of the second decisive deed. Therefore, Ananda, if killing is not stopped, the practice of dhyana samadhi is like shutting one's ears while crying in the hope that people will not hear one's voice, or like trying to hide something that is already exposed to full view. All bhikshus who live purely and all bodhisattvas always refrain even from walking on the grass. How can they agree to uproot it? How then can those who practice great compassion feed on the flesh and blood of living beings? If bhikshus do not wear garments made of Chinese silk, boots of local leathers and furs, and refrain from consuming milk, cream, and butter, they will really be liberated from the worldly after paying their former debts. They will not transmigrate in the three realms of existence. Why? Because by using animal products, one creates causes which are always followed by effects, just like a man who eats cereals grown in the soil and whose feet cannot leave the ground. If a man can control his body and mind and thereby refrains from eating animal flesh and wearing animal products, I say he will really be liberated. This teaching of mine is that of the Buddha, whereas any other is that of evil demons. Prohibition against stealing. Further, Ananda, if living beings in the six worlds of existence cease to steal, they will not be subject to the continual round of births and deaths. Your practice of samadhi should free you from defilements, but if your robber's mind is not wiped out, they cannot be eliminated. You may acquire much wisdom, but if you do not stop stealing, when dhyana manifests, you will fall into the way of devils, in which the high rank is attained by cunning spirits, the intermediate one by evil spirits, and the low one by the bedevilled men. These devils have their following and boast that they attain supreme bodhi. After my nirvana, in the dharma ending age, these devils will be found everywhere in the world. They will hide their perfidy, pose as men of good counsel, and declare that they won the supreme dharma to deceive the ignorant, who will thus lose their minds. Wherever they pass, they will cause untold miseries to their believers. This is why I teach the bhikshus to beg for food, so that they can overcome cupidity and realize bodhi. They do not cook themselves and pass their remaining years as transitory travelers in the three realms of existence to prove their last transmigration without incarnating again. How can thieves who wear the sangha robe, act as Tathagata mongers, and commit karmic deeds claim that they all preach the Buddha Dharma? They are not true leavers of home and are not ordained Hinayana bhikshus. They deceive an incalculable number of living beings, causing them to fall into the realm of unintermittent hells. After my nirvana, if there is a bhikshu who, in token of his determination to practice samadhi, lights in front of an image of the Tathagata a torch planted in his body, or burns a bone of his finger, or an incense stick inserted in his flesh, I say he will thus repay all his karmic debts, since the time him out without beginning will leave the worldly way forever and will escape from the stream of transmigration. For although he has not yet attained supreme bodhi, his mind is already set decisively on the dharma. However, without these small sacrifices, even if he realizes something, he will be reborn as a human being and will have to repay his former debts, as I did when I had to eat the grain fed to horses. Then you should teach worldly men who practice samadhi not to steal. This is called the Buddha's profound teaching of the third decisive deed. Ananda, if stealing is not stopped, the practice of dhyana samadhi is like pouring water into a vessel which will never hold it in spite of the passing of eons countless as dust. If this bhikshu does not keep garments in excess of what he needs, gives to other all food in excess of his requirement, joins his two palms to salute the community, and regard as praise, abuse, and blows. That is, if he is ready to give away his own flesh, bones, and blood, and if he does not pose as an expert interpreter of the expedient incomplete doctrine, and does not teach it to beginners in order not to mislead them, the Buddha will seal his realization of samadhi. The teaching of mine is that of the Buddha, whereas any other is that of evil demons. Prohibition against lying. Ananda, if living beings in the six worlds of existence, after cleansing their bodies and minds from killing, stealing, and carnality, continue to lie, they will fail to realize samadhi and will become demons filled with pride and prejudice. As a result, they will lose the Tathagata seed, and in their search for worldly fame will claim that they have achieved and realized what really they have not. They boast of their realization of the states of Strota-apana, Sakradagamin, Anagamin, Arahat, and Pratyeka Buddha, and the 10 stages of Bodhisattva development in order to attract believers who will make offerings to them for the atonement of sins. These unbelievers, Ichantika, will destroy the Buddha seed as easily as cutting into the trunk of a palm with a sharp chopper to stop it from growing. The Buddha predicts that these people will destroy their excellent roots, will not regain common sense, will sink into the three ocean realms of suffering, and will never achieve samadhi. I now command bodhisattvas and arahats to appear in the dharma ending age after my nirvana in all appropriate transformation bodies to save those caught in the wheel of samsara. They should come as monks, lay, disciples, principals, princes, ministers, boys, girls, and even as prostitutes, windows, rogues, widows, thieves, butchers, peddlers, to keep company with them and praise the Buddha Dharma in their presence, so as to convert them and urge them to practice it. In so doing, they should not disclose that they are true bodhisattvas and arahats. They will not reveal to beginners the Buddha's esoteric cause, but when they are about to die, they will secretly show some proof of their enlightenment to increase their disciples' faith in the Dharma. How can then such persons deceive living beings by telling deliberate lies? You should teach worldly men who practice samadhi not to lie. This is called the Buddha's profound teaching of the fourth decisive deed. Ananda, if lying is not stopped, the practice of dhyana samadhi is like copying in excrement a sandalwood statue and expecting it to be fragrant, which is impossible. I teach the bhikshus to develop a straightforward mind, which is the temple of enlightenment, buddhi mandala, and to be righteous in their common acts of daily life, while walking, standing, sitting, and reclining. How can a liar pretend that he has realized the supreme dharma? This is like a poor man proclaiming himself a king. He will only invite trouble and misfortune. Still less can he usurp the throne of the king of the law. If the casual ground is false, its fruit will be distorted, and the quest of Buddha's enlightenment will become impossible. If a bhikshu develops a mind as straight as a lute string and is truthful under all circumstances, he will avoid, in his practice of samadhi, all troubles caused by the demon. I will seal his realization of the bodhisattva's supreme bodhi. This teaching of mine is that of the Buddha, whereas any other one is that of evil demons. Bodhisattva development into Buddhahood. Ananda rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha, and said, "We were ignorant and sought only knowledge by listening. This is why we fail to forsake the worldly mind. Now, after we have heard, with great benefit, the Buddha's compassionate instruction on the right practice of sublimation, our bodies and minds experience great comfort. World-honored one, in this practice of Buddha Samadhi and before attaining Nirvana, what are the progressive steps from the manifestations of dry, unfertilized wisdom through the 44 stages of Bodhisattva development to the realization of universal enlightenment?" After saying this, he prostrated himself, and together with the whole assembly, reverently stared at the Buddha and awaited his compassionate voice. The Buddha praised Ananda and said, "Excellent, excellent. It is good that on behalf of this assembly and of all living beings in the Dharma-ending age who will practice Samadhi in their quest of Mahayana, you can ask for my instruction on the unsurpassed path from the worldly condition to transcendental parinirvana. Listen attentively to what I now tell you." Ananda and the assembly brought their palms together and concentrated their minds to receive the teaching. Bodhisattva development into Buddhahood. Ananda rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha, and said, "We are ignorant and sought only knowledge by listening. This is why we fail to forsake the worldly mind. Now, after we have heard with the great benefit the Buddha's compassionate instruction on the right practice of sublimation, our bodies and minds experience great comfort. World-honored one, in this practice of Buddha Samadhi and before attaining Nirvana, what are the progressive steps from the manifestations of dry, unfertilized wisdom through the 44 stages of Bodhisattva development to realization of universal enlightenment?" The Tathagata store from which arise both samsara and nirvana. The Buddha said, "Ananda, you should know that the absolute nature is completely enlightened. It is beyond name and form and is fundamentally free from either the world or living beings. Because of ignorance, there arises birth, which is followed by death. So birth and death are unreal, and the wiping out of the unreal brings about the real, which is called Supreme Bodhi and Parinirvana. Hence, these terms imply the twofold transmutation of klesha and samsara into Bodhi and Nirvana. Ananda, if you now wish to achieve the state of samadhi in order directly to reach the Tathagata's parinirvana, you should know first the two inverted causes which lead to the existence of living beings and the world. The non-rising of these inversions is the Tathagata's true state of samadhi. The origin of living beings and the world. Ananda, what are these two inversions? Because of the bright mind's arbitrary awareness of the underlying bright nature, the latter, which is fundamentally enlightened, becomes an objective form as opposed to a false perception. Thus, from fundamental nothingness arises actual phenomena. Therefore, the existence of ignorance and its creation of the world and living beings, the causeless cause of subjective ignorance and its objective creation, and subjective living beings dwelling in their objective abode, the world have no real basis. From the reality which does not abide, anywhere spring the world and living beings. The inverted cause of the existence of living beings. What is the inverted cause of the seeming existence of living beings? The faulty awareness of completely enlightened nature creates a falsehood which has neither nature nor basis. If you wish to restore the real, this very wish pertains to the samsaric mind and is not related to absolute nature. If the unreal mind is used to recover real nature, the latter will be unreal, and of necessity there follow illusory birth and existence, as well as unreal mind and dharma, which will unfold endlessly and will gain in intensity, thereby creating new karma, and so responses from those sharing the same karma. This karmic responsiveness leads to the interdependence of the births and deaths, hence the inverted cause of the seeming existence of living beings. The inverted cause of the existence of the world. Ananda, what is the inverted cause of the world, the realm of space and time? Because of the illusory existence of ignorance and its creation of the world and living beings, there arises the immortal lot clinging to space. Because of the causeless cause of subjective ignorance and its objective creation, and because of subjective living beings dwelling in their objective abode, all unfolding continuously and transitorily, time arises. Thus the three aspects of time and the four cardinal points of the space intermingle and combine to produce the 12 3x4 categories of beings. The 12 type of transformation. Therefore, in the world, movement leads to sound, sound to form, form to smell, smell to touch, touch to taste, and taste to thoughts, karma. These 6 illusions contribute to the formation of karma, which causes the division into 12. That is 6 illusions, each for body and mind, different types of change. Hence the wheel turning in samsara, wherein these illusory sense data end in 12 different transformations in each rotation. Each false thought turns the wheel and contributes to these 12 types of births. The 12 groups of living beings. Such inversion that turn the wheel of samsara creates 12 groups of species born of eggs, wombs, humidity, and by transformation, having forms being beyond form, thoughtful or thoughtfulness, or thoughtless, having neither form nor no form, and being neither thoughtful nor thoughtfulness, thoughtless. Ananda, because of the turning wheel of illusion in objective samsara, as a result of inversion caused by subjective stirring minds, both subject and object are in harmony and combine to produce favorable conditions for 84,000 rising and sinking confused thoughts, which form the embryos kalala in eggs for incarnation as fishes, birds, turtles, snakes, etc. They are found in plenty all over the world. This birth from eggs. Because of the turning wheel of mortal infection in objective samsara as a result of inversion caused by subjective sensual minds, both subject and object sustain each other and combine to produce favorable conditions for 84,000 confusing divergent thoughts, which become fetuses at Buddha in the wombs for incarnation as men, animals, dragons, immortals, beings. They are found in plenty all over the world. This birth from wombs. Because of the turning wheel of attachment in objective samsara as a result of inversion caused by subjective craving minds, both subject and object inflame each other and combine to produce favorable conditions for 84,000 vacillating confused thoughts, which become damp embryos, pissy in humidity for incarnation as crawling insects and wriggling worms. They are found in plenty all over the world. This is birth from humidity. Because of the turning wheel of change in objective samsara as a result of inversion caused by subjective deceitful minds, both subject and object stimulate each other and combine to produce favorable conditions for 84,000 changing confused thoughts, taking the shape of solid lumps, kana, for incarnation as beings which shed their skins, change their forms, and fly. They are found in plenty all over the world. This is birth by transformation. Because of the turning wheel of stiff disposition in objective samsara as a result of inversion caused by subjective hindering minds, both subject and object adhere and combine to produce favorable conditions for 84,000 mystical, transulent, and confused thoughts which take solid form to incarnate as people whose luminous quality forebodes good and evil. They are found in plenty all over the world. These are heretics and mystics having forms. Because of the turning wheels of dissipating disposition in objective samsara as a result of inversion caused by subjective deluded minds, both subject and object unite with dullness and combine to produce favorable conditions for 84,000 confusing mysterious thoughts for formless rebirths as beings whose bodies and minds are dissolved in the great emptiness. They are found in plenty all over the world. These are formless beings. Because of the turning wheel of fanciful disposition in objective samsara as a result of inversion caused by subjective imaginative minds, both subject and object unite with recollection and combine to produce favorable conditions for 84,000 latent and firmly confused thoughts to be reborn as ghosts, as spirits of thoughtful beings. They are found in plenty all over the world. These are thoughtful beings. Because of the turning wheel of dull dispositions in objective samsara as a result of inversion caused by subjective stupid minds, both subject and object cling to intractableness and combine to produce favorable conditions for 84,000 confusing, lifeless thoughts for rebirths as spirit dwellings in earth, trees, metals, and stones. They are thoughtless beings that are found in plenty all over the world. These are thoughtless beings. Because of the turning wheel of parasitic dispositions in objective samsara as a result of inversion caused by subjective guileful minds, subject and object infect each other and combine to produce favorable conditions for 84,000 confusing commensal thoughts for rebirths as beings who are formless yet have form, such as jellyfish which use shrimp as their eyes. They are found in plenty all over the world. These are beings which are beyond yet have form. Because of the turning wheel of seductive dispositions in objective samsara as a result of inversion caused by subjective artful minds, both subject and object rely on magic and spells and combine to produce favorable conditions for 84,000 entreating confused thoughts for rebirths as beings with forms yet formless who grow weary of witchcraft. They are plenty all over the world. They are beings with form yet beyond form. Because of the turning wheel of deceitful dispositions in objective samsara as a result of inversion caused by subjective tricky minds, both subject and object combine to produce favorable conditions for 84,000 interchanging confused thoughts to be reborn as thoughtful yet thoughtless beings, such as wasps which mistake larvae of other insects for their own. They are found in plenty all over the world. These are thoughtful yet thoughtless beings. Because of the turning wheels of revengeful disposition in objective samsara as a result of inversion caused by subjective murderous minds, both subject and object unite in whimsy and combine to produce favorable conditions for 84,000 fantastic thoughts of parasite and matricide to be reborn as beings who are thoughtless yet thoughtful, such as certain owls and tigers, which respectively devour their mothers and fathers. They are found in plenty all over the world. These are thoughtless yet thoughtful beings. transmutation of samsara into nirvana. Thus, Ananda, each of these species has its 12 kinds of inversion, which, like dancing flowers seen when one rubs one's eyes, overturn the perfect and pure enlightened mind and cause wrong thinking. As you now practice the Buddha Samadhi, you should take 3 gradual steps to deal with the basic cause of stirring thoughts in order to wipe them out. This is like removing poisonous honey from a pot by using hot water mixed with ashes to cleanse the container. Only when the latter is completely clean can it be used to hold ambrosia. The 3 gradual steps to wipe out samsara. What are these 3 gradual steps? They are the contributory practice to remove all accessory causes, the main practice to obliterate the basic causes, and the progressive practice to stop the growth of karma. What are the accessory causes? Ananda, these 12 species in the world owe their existence to 4 ways of feeding: by eating, touching, thinking about, and being conscious of food. Therefore, the Buddha says that all living beings depend on feeding for their stay in samsara. Ananda, all beings live if they eat wholesome food and die if they take poison. In their search for samadhi, they should abstain from eating 5 kinds of pungent roots, that is garlic, the 3 kinds of onions, and leeks. If eaten cooked, they are aphrodisiac, and if raw, they cause irritability. Although those who eat them may read the 12 divisions of the Mahayana canon, they drive away seers, the rishis in the 10 directions, who abhor the bad odor and attract hungry ghosts who lick their lips. They are always surrounded by ghosts, and their good fortune will fade away day by day to their own detriment. When these eaters of pungent roots practice samadhi, none of the bodhisattvas, seers, and good spirits come to protect them, while the mighty king of the demons take advantage of the occasion to appear as a Buddha, as if to teach them the dharma, defaming and breaking the precepts, and raising carnality, anger, and stupidity. At their death, they will join his retinue, and at the end of the time in his realm, they will fall into unintermittent hell. Ananda, practitioners of samadhi should never eat these 5 pungent roots. This is the first step of gradual practice. What are the basic causes, Ananda? Those practitioners who wish to enter the state of samadhi should first observe strictly the rules of pure living, to cut lust from the mind by abstaining from meat and wine, and by taking cooked instead of raw food. Ananda, if they do not abstain from carnality and killing, they will never escape from the 3 worlds of existence. They should consider lust as dangerous as a poisonous snake and a deadly foe. They should begin by strictly observing the Hinayana's 4 prohibitions for monks and 8 for nuns to regulate the body, and then adhere to the bodhisattva discipline to ensure the non-stirring of mind. If they observe the precepts, they will wipe out forever the karma that leads to birth and killing. If, in addition, they cease to steal, they will owe nothing to others and will not have debts to repay. Those who keep the rules of pure living in their practice of samadhi will be able to see with their own eyes, without the aid of deva sight, all the worlds in the 10 directions. They will behold the Buddha preaching the Dharma, will personally receive the holy teaching, will win the transcendental power which enables them to roam freely in all worlds, and will acquire the Buddha knowledge of all forms of their own and others' previous existence, and so will be immune from all calamities. This is the second step of gradual practice. What happens when karma no longer grows? The minds of these practitioners who observe the prohibitions, now free from sensual desire, will not wander outside in search of sense data, but return to the inner mind. For lack of casual sense data, their organs, thus disengaged from externals, turn back to the undivided one, to which, since the 6 functions have ceased to discriminate, all countries will appear pure and clean. This is like a crystal ball with a bright moon inside it. Their bodies and minds will experience joy and great comfort in the state of absolute and perfect impartiality, in which the esoteric perfection and pure absoluteness of all Tathagatas appear. They will then achieve the great patience of uncreate, and will continue their progress towards sainthood. This is the third step of gradual practice. Progression advance in bodhisattva development, the stage of dry wisdom. Ananda, these virtuous men will dry up their sensual desire and disengage their organs from sense data. This withering of causes stops the growth of karma. The clinging mind is now empty and clear, being but unmixed wisdom, which is perfect and bright by nature, illuminating all worlds in the 10 directions. The realization of wisdom is called the stage of dry wisdom, because they have cut off their sensual habits, but have not yet entered the Tathagata's Dharma stream. The 10 stages of Bodhisattva faith. 1. After realizing the dry wisdom, if they use their progressive mind to look into the innermost depth, the perfect and profound essence of mind will manifest. This state of absolute perfection leads to that of true absoluteness, resulting in the permanence of absolute faith and total eradication of all false thinking. This is the mean in its true purity, and is called the stage of Bodhisattva faith. Their faith, thus genuinely achieved, ensures their complete understanding, which is no more hindered by the 5 aggregates, 12 entrances, ayatana, and 18 fields of senses, dhatu, and thereby embraces the past, present, and future. Thus are exposed the vicious habits which led to their countless incarnations in the past, the smallest details of which they can now remember. This is called the stage of remembrance or unforgetfulness. This absolute perfection in its purity causes the essential wisdom to turn all vicious habits contracted since the time without beginning into one bright essence which continues to advance towards the real and pure. This is called the stage of zealous progress. 4. The essence of mind, which now manifests, is the wisdom that destroys the darkness of ignorance. This is called the stage of wisdom. 5. This bright wisdom now shines upon its own substance in stillness and profundity, thus ensuring the permanent union of function and substance. This is called the stage of dhyana. 6. The light of dhyana becomes brighter. It is now more penetrating and prevents all backsliding. This is called the stage of non-retrogression. 7. The mind, now advancing smoothly, preserves all previous achievements and is aware of all tathagatas in the 10 directions. This is stage of protection of the dharma. 8. The brightness of wisdom, thus preserved and strengthened, can now, by means of its transcendental power, reflect the light of the Buddha's compassion and thereby abide within his body like two bright mirrors facing and reflecting each other to infinity. This is the stage of reflective powers. The light of the mind then turns inwards and unites forever with the unsurpassed absolute purity of the inner Buddha, thereby resting in the non-retrogressive state of transcendental non-activity, Wu Wei. This is called the stage of unshaken discipline, Sila. 10. A great comfort derives from this rest in discipline which enables the mind to roam at will anywhere in the 10 directions. This is called the stage of the mind of high resolve. The 10 practical stages of Bodhisattva wisdom. 1. Ananda, after achieving these 10 stages of Bodhisattva faith by practical expedients, the essence of mind manifests and radiates. The intermingling of these 10 functions of mind perfects the one mind. This is called the purposive stage. 2. The inner mind now radiates like brilliant pure gold in a globe of clear crystal. As the previous contemplative wisdom now reaches the mind ground, this is called the stage of control of the mind ground. 3. The cognizance of the mind ground fully reveals both wisdom and its object as one reality in the 10 directions, free from all hindrance. This is called the stage of Bodhisattva practice. The Bodhisattva conduct is now similar to that of the Buddha, which influences it. Like a dead man in the intermediate state seeking parents as a channel for his rebirth in the world, the advancing mind enters the Tathagata seed. This is called the stage of noble birth. 5. The mind, gestating in the holy womb, inherits the basic body, and the fetus is formed with all its characteristics. This is called the stage of all in readiness for enlightenment. 6. Both form and mind are identical with those of the Buddha. This is called the stage of the true mind. 7. The integration of body and mind becomes firmer with the passing of time. This is called the stage of non-retrogression. 8. The fetus is now complete with the 10 aspects of the Buddha's body. This is called the stage of Bodhi in its infancy or immaturity. 9. The fetus now completely formed is born and becomes a son of Buddha. This is called the stage of their heir to the king of the law. 10. The celebration of his coming of age is like the consecration ceremony held when a crown prince assumes the reins of government. This is called the stage of investiture. The 10 lines of Bodhisattva action. 1. Ananda, although these virtuous men, after attaining the rank of a son of Buddha, have acquired the Tathagata's countless merits, they remain in harmony with all beings in their 10 directions. This is called joyful service. They are able to work for the welfare of all living beings. This is called beneficial activity. Their self-enlightenment and the enlightenment of the others are free from all contradiction. This activity is called non-resentful. 4. Their continuous appearance in countless forms in the unending future for the welfare of others, free from the conception of time and space, is called inexhaustible activity. 5. Their preaching, free from all clinging, conforms to the teaching of non-duality of all dharma doors and is called an activity never out of order. 6. The nominal unity reveals a vast variety of undifferentiated phenomena. This is called skillful activity to appear at will. 7. In the state, all the worlds in the 10 directions appear in every speck of dust, with neither dust nor worlds hindering each other. This is called the non-clinging activity. 8. All manifestations are but the highest perfection, paramita, leading to the other shore of Bodhi. This is exalting activity. 9. This perfect intermingling of noumenon and the phenomenon achieves the Buddha pattern in the 10 directions and is called the skillful performance of the law. 10. Each line of action is but pure and transcendental non-activity, Wu Wei, derived from the one reality of thatness. This is called activity in harmony with the truth. The 10 acts of dedication. Parinamana. Ananda, after these virtuous men have won transcendental powers in their performance of the Buddha work, they attain the state of pure reality, which frees them from all hindrances. These should deliver living beings without clinging to the notion of salvation in order to turn the non-activity, wu-wei, mind towards the path to nirvana. This is dedication to the salvation of all living beings while avoiding the conception of saving them. The wiping out of all that is destructible while avoiding the very idea of so doing is called dedication to the indestructible. The realization that basic Bodhi is profound and equal to the Buddha's enlightenment is called dedication to equality with all Buddhas. Manifestations of the pure mind ground, which is identical to the state of a Buddha, is called dedication to omnipresence. The free intermingling of the worldly and the absolute state of the Tathagata is called dedication to the inexhaustible store of merits. The rising of only pure causes from the same state of Buddhahood in search of nirvana is called dedication to the excellent roots of impartiality. The realization of impartiality in this way, which reveals the identity of all living beings in the 10 directions with one's fundamental nature, the perfection of which does not exclude any one of them, is called dedication to the sameness of all beings. The realization of the identity of all phenomena, free from all differentiation, with no clinging to either sameness or difference, is called dedication to the absolute. The achievement of this absolute state, free from all hindrance in 10 directions, is called dedication to unimpending liberation. Perfect realization of self-nature, which wipes out all consideration about the realm of karma, is called dedication to the boundless dharmadhatu. The 4 additional harnessing stages, prayoga. Ananda, these virtuous men, after achieving these 41 stages of bodhisattva development, should train in 4 additional harnessing stages. 1. The Buddha Bodhi employed as self-mind now seems to manifest, but actually does not yet do so. This is like kindling a fire by rubbing 2 sticks together in order to burn them. It is called the warming stage. 2. Further, the self-mind now used as the ground for Buddha enlightenment seems to rely on wisdom, but actually does not, like a climber reaching the top of a mountain with his body in the air while his feet still touch the ground. This is called the summit stage. 3. The realization of the sameness of mind and Buddha leading to the perfecting of the mean is like forbearing from something which can be either retained nor rejected. This is called the forbearing stage. 4. Being above all estimate and measure, the mean which is between delusion and enlightenment is neither the one nor the other. This is called the highest stage on the worldly plane. Being above all estimate and measures, the mean which is between delusion and enlightenment is neither the one nor the other. This is neti in Hinduism. This is called the highest stage on the worldly plane. Neither the one nor the other. Neti. The 10 highest stages of bodhisattva attainment. Dasabhumi. 1. Ananda, after these virtuous men's skillful understanding of the great Bodhi, they become aware of the Tathagata's full state of Buddhahood. This is called the stage of joy. Pramudita. At having overcome all hindrances and so entering upon the path to Buddhahood. 2. They now realize that all differentiation merges into a single unity which also vanishes. This is called the stage of freedom from all defilements. Vimala. 3. Utter purity now begets further enlightenment. This is called the stage of illumination. Prabhakara. 4. Perfect understanding leads to Bodhi in its fullness. This is called the stage of mastery of glowing wisdom. Akismati. 5. Realization of the condition beyond unity and differentiation is called the stage of mastery over utmost difficulties. Sudurzaya. 6. The manifestation of non-active Bhutata is called the stage of the appearance of the Absolute. Abkhimukhi. 7. Total penetration of the whole region of the Absolute is called the all-embracing stage. Durangama. 8. Full manifestation of the absolute one mind is called the stage of imperturbability, akala, and this is called the Godhead in Hinduism. 9. Full manifestations of its absolute function is called the stage of foremost wisdom, sadhumati, sadhu. Ananda, as these bodhisattvas complete their practice and training with great success, this is also called the stage of successful practice. 10. They are now realized the state in which sheltering clouds of compassion cover the ocean of nirvana. This is called the stage of dharma clouds, dharma mega. The universal enlightenment. While the Tathagata goes against the holy current to appear in the world for his work of salvation, these bodhisattvas follow that current to reach their goals. The point where the former, the fruit ground, meets the latter, the cause ground, is called the stage of universal enlightenment, Samyak Sambodhi. The absolute of wonderful enlightenment. Ananda, the dry wisdom in the diamond mind can be fully realized only after passing through the whole process of bodhisattva's development, that is, from the first stage of dry wisdom up to that of universal enlightenment. Thus, by passing through 12 stages, either singly or in groups of 10 states each, absolute enlightenment can be completely realized for the attainment of supreme Bodhi. Throughout these different stages achieved by means of diamond insight into the 10 profound illusions, the Tathagata's clear perception, vipassana, is effectively used during the stilling of the mind, samatha, in gradual practice and training. Thus, Ananda, the 3 gradual steps to wipe out samsara, complete the 55 stages of bodhisattva development on the bodhi path. Such meditation is right, whereas any other is heretical. The titles of this sutra. Thereupon, Bodhisattva Manjusri rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha, and asked, what name should be given to this sutra, and how should we and living beings receive and practice it? The Buddha replied, this sutra is called the unsurpassed seal of the supreme dharmas, Sita Kapatra, the pure and clean ocean eye of all Tathagatas in the 10 directions. It is also called the Sutra on the protection and deliverance of Ananda and Bhikshuni's self-nature of this assembly, so that they realize the Bodhi mind to enter the ocean of all wisdom. It is also called the practice and realization of the whole truth by means of the Tathagata's esoteric cause. It is also called the universal lotus king, the Dharani of all Buddha mothers in the 10 directions. It is also called the Bodhisattva's foremost practice of the Śūraṅgama of the Abhiseka consecration division. Under these 5 names, you should receive and practice this sutra. The 6 planes of existence caused by unenlightenment. The 6 states of living beings in samsara. After hearing the Buddha's disclosure of the Siddhartha's esoteric seal and the whole truth as the titles of this sutra, Ananda and the assembly instantly awakened to the state of jnana, the practice of which could lead to the holy stages and increase their understanding of the profound doctrine, so that they could wipe out all the troubles derived from the first 6 classes of delusion in the 3 realms of existence. Ananda then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of Buddha, brought his palms together, and said, O august and world-honored one, your compassionate voice has revealed so skillfully to us the subtle delusions of all living beings for my great benefit, thereby bringing great comfort to my body and mind. World-honored one, if this bright and pure absolute mind were essentially perfect, then even the great earth, plants and trees, inanimate things as well as weakling worms and all beings possessing life, sentient beings, would be the fundamental Bhuta Tata, which is but the Tathagata's real substance in the state of Buddhahood. If the Buddha's substance were true and real, how could there also be the world of hells, hungry ghosts, animals, asuras, men and devas? World-honored one, are these worlds fundamentally self-existent, or do they arise because of living beings' vicious habits of dwelling in falsehood? World-honored one, let me illustrate what I mean. The Bhikshuni, fragrance of the precious lotus, after receiving the rules of Bodhisattva discipline, fornicated and pretended that it was neither killing nor stealing and was therefore not subject to karmic retribution. As a result, after her genital organ had been slowly scorched by the flame of passion, she fell into the unintermittent hell. King Crystal massacred men of the Gautama clan, and Bhikshu Sanaksatra wrongly preached the annihilation of all things, and so implied that the law of causality was invalid. Both as a result of their evil acts fell into the Avisi hell. Are these hells really somewhere, or are they self-existing for every sinner to suffer in them? Will you be compassionate enough to enlighten us so that those who observe the precepts know what they imply and do not break them? The Buddha said, it is good that you ask this question for the benefit of all living beings, so that they cease to hold wrong views. Listen attentively to what I now tell you. Ananda, all living beings are fundamentally pure, but because of their wrong views, they have formed vicious habits, hence their inner and outer affections. Ananda, inner affections concerns their inwardness. Because of the taint of desire, they give rise to wrong passions, the accumulation of which produces the water of craving. This is why the thought of good food makes the mouth water. The thought of a predecessor whom one pities or hates fills one's eyes with tears. The craving for wealth steers one's heart and makes the saliva flow and the body sleep. When the mind gives rise to sexual desire, the generative fluid flows from the male and female organs. And although these desires differ, their manifestations are all characterized by the secretion of water, which by nature flows downhill instead of top. This is inner affection. Ananda, outer affection concerns living beings externally. Their keen desires produce illusory thoughts, which by continuous pursuit becomes overwhelming. Thus, the mind bent on strict observance of the precepts makes the body light. The mind concentrated on the incantation mantra and mystic gestures, mudra, gives a virile and resolute air. The mindset on the rebirth in the heaven of gods brings dreams in which the practitioner seems to fly upwards. The mind concentrated on the Buddha land causes holy realms to appear, and the real devotion to a religious counselor, Kalyana Mitra, leads to the willing sacrifice of even one's life. Although these thoughts differ, all these manifestations are by nature characterized by a lightness of body which soars up instead of sinking down, so that they leap over their present states. This is outer affection. Ananda, in the round of births and deaths in samsara, birth is caused by the habits of passions and death by the flow of retributive transformation. This is why, at the moment of death and before the heat completely leaves the body, all good and evil deeds of a lifetime suddenly reappear to someone who is dead but on the point of being reborn. The realm of devas. If his mind is wholly thoughtful, it will fly in the air and he will be reborn in heaven. If in this flight it is filled with blessedness and wisdom strongly sustained by his pure vow, it will open to let him behold the pure lands of all Buddhas in the 10 directions. He will be reborn there as a result of his vow. The realm of seers, rishi and spirits. If his mind is more thoughtful than passionate, it will not be light enough for him to fly to distant places. He will be reborn as a flying rishi, a powerful king of ghosts, a flying yaksha, or an airbound rakshasa. He will be able to roam freely in the heavens of the 4 Deva kings. If he is good-natured and has taken a vow to protect my dharma, and those who observe the precept, repeat the mantras, meditate and realize patience, endurance, he will dwell beneath the throne of the Tathagata. The realm of human beings. If his thoughts and passions are in equal proportions, he will neither rise nor sink, but will be reborn in the realm of human beings, where his intelligence comes from the clearness of his thoughts and his stupidity from the dullness of his passions. The realm of animals. If his passions exceeds his thoughts, he will be reborn in the realm of animals, where great passions create beasts with hair and fur, and mild passions produce winged and feathered creatures. The realm of hungry ghosts. If his passions and thoughts are in the proportion of 7 to 3, he will sink into the will of water close to the region of fire, will endure intense heat, and be reborn as a hungry ghost whose body is constantly scorched by heat and drowned in water, so that he will suffer from hunger and thirst for hundreds and thousands of eons. The realms of hells. If his passions and thoughts are in the proportion of 9 to 1, he will sink into the will of fire and be reborn where wind and the fire meet. He will dwell in the intermittent hell if his passions are great, in the intermittent one if they are very strong, and in the avitsi hell if he is completely dominated by extremely violent ones. If in addition he slanders the Mahayana, breaks the Buddha's precepts, distorts the Dharma when preaching it to deceive his patrons for selfish gain or for fame, and commits the 5 rebellious and 10 grave sins, he will be reborn in turn in all the avitsi hells. Although the above are self-inflicted retributions resulting from individual evil deeds, all sinners endure the same kinds of suffering which originate from the same concurrent causes. The 10 causes of 6 effects in the realms of hells. The 10 karmic causes of the realm of hells. Ananda. These retributions come from the karmic acts of living beings who create 10 karmic causes by their vicious habits and so suffer from 6 kinds of retribution. The habit of sexual desire. Ananda, what are these 10 causes? Lust grows into a habit because of sexual intercourse in which 2 people caress each other, thereby producing heat that in turn stimulates desire. This is like the heat caused by rubbing the hands together. The 2 habits from karma and lust stimulate each other and cause visions of hot iron beds on hot copper supports. Hence all Buddhas regard sexual intercourse as a burning fire of desire, and all bodhisattvas avoid carnality as if it was a fairy pit. The habit of craving. Craving grows into habit because of grasping, which is a kind of suction which in time creates the illusion of cold, frost, chill, and shivering. This is like the cold sensation felt when one breathes in thorough pursed lips. The combination of karma and craving leads to retribution in the form of suffering expressed by crying out against biting cold and shown by the skin turning blue, red, or white. Hence, all Buddhas regard craving as the water of greed, and all bodhisattvas avoid it as they would a sea of pestilential vapor. The habit of arrogance. Arrogance grows into a habit because of abuse, which manifests by the oppression of others, which in time creates the illusion of restless waves, which builds up a volume of water. This is like licking one's mouth to make it water. The 2 habits from karma and arrogance stimulate each other and create visions of rivers of blood, hot ashes, burning sand, poisonous seas, and molten copper poured on the sinner's tongue. And so all Buddhas regard all self-importance as the water of stupidity, and all bodhisattvas avoid it as they would drowning. The habit of anger. Anger grows into habit because of irritation, which manifests as stubbornness, which in time inflames the heart, whose heat turns the vital breath into metal. Hence the illusions of hills of knives, iron posts, trees, wheels of swords, axes, halberds, spears, and saws. This is like a man pushed by his obstinacy to avenge a wrong. The 2 habits from karma and anger stimulate each other and create visions of castration, hacking, beheading, chopping, wounding, mutilating, bludgeoning, and striking. This is like a man flying into a rage and ready to kill to redress a wrong. Hence all Buddhas regard hatred as a sharp sword, and all bodhisattvas flee from it as from their own execution. The habit of deceitfulness. Deceitfulness grows into a habit because of enticement, which manifests as deceit, which in time creates illusion of cords, sticks, ropes, and cankus that restrain the sinner. This is like the field flooded for growing grass and plants. The two habits from karma and deception sustain each other and create more and more evil deeds that deserve punishment with fetters, locks, whips, staves, birches, and cudgels. And so all Buddhas regard deceitfulness as harmful as calumny, and all bodhisattvas avoid it as they would a wolf. The habit of lying. Lying grows into a habit because of beguilement, which manifests as fraud, which in time ends in treachery. This creates illusion of filth, such as dust, excrement, and urine. This is like dust blown by the wind, which screens everything. The two habits from karma and lies intensively each other and end in suffering from drowning, tossing, flying, dropping, drifting, and sinking. Hence, all Buddhas regard lying as harmful, as plundering and killing, and all bodhisattvas avoid it as they would stepping on venomous snakes. The habit of resentment. Resentment grows into a habit because of aversion, which manifests as malice. This creates illusion of being stoned, catapulted, shut in a prison van, trapped, bagged, and stuck. This is like a mischief maker, always with evil designs. The two habits from karma and resentment combine and results in punishment by being tossed and hurled about, seized, apprehended, struck, and shot. And so all Buddhas regard resentment as an evil spirit, and all bodhisattvas avoid it as they would poisoned wine. The habit of wrong views. Wrong views grow into habit because of misinterpretation, which covers the five misconceptions from the reality of the ego and objects down to rigorous ascetic prohibitions. This causes the misunderstanding of karmic effects due to rejection of the real and attachment to the unreal, hence the illusion of judgment with proofs of evidence which cannot be denied. As when two people coming from opposite directions cannot avoid people of the same road, the two habits from karma and wrong views combine to cause visions of questioning, cross-examination, judicial investigation, inquiry, interrogation, and unveiling of right and wrong in court, while good and bad counsel produce the documents and argue about them. Hence, all Buddhas regard wrong views as an abyss of perversion, and all bodhisattvas avoid them as they would ravine full of poison. The habit of unfairness. Unfairness grows into a habit because of false accusation, which manifests in slander. This creates illusions of hills and rocks which flows in from all sides to crush, break, score, and grind the sinner. It is like abusing the innocent. Both habits from karma and injustice combine to bring about illusions of apprehension, pressure, beating, repression, coercion, and restraint of the sinner by the law. Hence all Buddhas regard defamation as harmful as a tiger, and all bodhisattvas flee from it as from a clap of thunder. The habit of disputation. Disputing grows into a habit because of much talk, which manifests in concealing one's shortcomings. This creates illusion of secrets being exposed by being reflected in a mirror or by a lamp being lit, like objects that cannot be hidden in broad daylight. The two habits from karma and disputation end in the exposure of sins from the mirror and lamp reveal 4 more karmic leads for final judgment. Hence, all Buddhas regard the concealment as a secret enemy, and all bodhisattvas consider it as dangerous as carrying a hill on the head or walking into the ocean. The 6 retributive effects in the realms of hells. What are the 6 retributive effects, Ananda? All living beings with 6 consciousness causes them to commit karmic acts, suffer from evil effects through the 6 sense organs. Retributive effects of wrong seeing. What are the evil effects suffered through the 6 sense organs? When the karma ripens at the time of death, the evil effects of wrong seeing cause one to see a raging fire that fills the 10 directions. His spirit will follow the smoke, and in a flash will fall into the unintermittent hell, where he will experience both light, which reveals all sorts of evil things everywhere, which give rise to boundless dread, and silent darkness, which hides everything and causes infinite fear. So the flame of wrong seeing scorches the organ of hearing and transforms it into purgatories of cauldrons of boiling water and seas of molten copper, the organ of smell into black smoke and purple flame, the organs of taste into hot pills and molten iron, the organ of touch into hot ashes and burning charcoal, and the organ of intellect into scattered sparks that disturb the whole of space. Retributive effects of wrong hearing. When karma ripens at the time of death, the evil effects of wrong hearing cause one to see rising waves that submerge heaven and earth. His spirit then follows them to fall into the unintermittent hell, where he will experience both unbearable noises that confuse and disturb him and dead silence that makes him dispirited. So these waves flow into the organ of hearing to transform it into rebuke and interrogation, into the organ of sight to turn it into thunder, roars of animals and jets of poisonous gas, into the organ of smell to change it into rain, fog, and showers of venomous insects that cover his whole body, into the organ of taste to transform into pus, blood, and all sorts of filth, into organ of touch to turn into animals, ghosts, excrement, and urine, and into the organ of intellect to change it into lightning and hail that strike and break up his spirits. Retributive effects of wrong smelling. When karma ripens at the time of death, the evil effects of wrong smelling cause one to see clouds of poisonous gas everywhere. His spirit will leap from the earth to fall into the unintermittent hell, where he will experience both the state of free breathing that draws in all sorts of foul fumes that infect and upset his heart, mind, and of the blocked breathing that chokes him until he swoons and drops the ground. Thus these foul airs enter the organ of smell to clear and obstruct his nostrils, the organ of sight to transform it into flame or lighted torch, the organ of hearing to turn it into the sounds made by plunging into water, by drowning and by never ceasing waves, the organ of taste into rotten and stinking fish, the organ of touch into ripe and decomposed corpse, and a great hill of flesh with hundreds and thousands of eyes to see itself being devoured by countless beasts, and the organ of thinking into dust, miasmas, and flying pebbles that strike and break his body. Retributive effects of wrong tasting. When karma ripens at the time of death, the evil effects of the wrong tasting cause the person concerned to see an iron net and a great blaze of fire that cover the whole world. His spirit will then rise to drop upside down into the net with his head caught in its meshes, and he will then be drawn into the unintermittent hell, where he will both feel that his in-breath which is transformed into bitter cold that bites his body, and his outer breath turned into fierce fire that scorches his bones and marrow. Thus this wrong tasting enters the organ of taste to transform it into great hardship, the organ of sight into molten metal and rock, and the organ of hearing into sharp weapons, the organ of smell into huge iron cage that covers the whole country, the organ of touch into long bows and arrows and into crossbows and bowls, and the organ of thinking into iron hail that rains down. Retributive effects of wrong touching. When karma ripens at the time of death, the evil effects of wrong touch cause one to see great mountains closing in from all the four quarters with no way to escape. His spirit will see an iron-locked town, fierce snakes and dogs, tigers, wolves, and lions, jailers with ox heads, and rakshasas with horse heads, holding spears and lances, which chase him into town and forces him to unintermittent hell, where he will experience both the embrace of mountains, contact that close in to crush his body into a mess of bones, flesh, and blood, and the pain of being cut off, separation when sharp swords slay his body and rip open his heart and liver. Thus this wrong touch enters its organ to transform it into road to hell, and the abode of Yama with hall and judgment seat, the organ of sight into heat and burning, the organ of hearing into knocking, striking, stabbing, and shooting, the organ of smell into apprehending, bagging, judging, and roping, the organ of taste into plowing, nipping, beheading, and cutting, and the organ of intellect into flying, falling, frying, and roasting. Retributive effects of wrong thinking. When karma ripens at the time of death, the evil effects of wrong thinking cause one to see evil winds blow through the destroyed country. His spirit will be blown up into space and then drop down to be carried into the unintermittent hell, where he will suffer from both the utter confusion that obscures all his senses and frightens him into ceaseless running around about, and from the perfect clarity in which all his senses function in good order to feel unbearable pain when he being fried and scorched. Thus this wrong thinking enters his faculty of thought to transform it into receptacle, the organ of seeing into scrutinizing and evidencing, the organ of hearing into a rock, its warmth into ice and frost, and its clearness into dust and fog, the organ of smell into great fiery chariot, vessel, and cage, the organ of taste into cries, screams, lamentations, and weeping, the organ of touch into large or small body subject in a single day to 10,000s of births and deaths. Ananda, these are the 10 causes of 6 effects of the realms of hells, which are all created by living beings through their own delusion and falseness. Degrees of perversity in relation to suffering in the hells. If at all times a living being creates these 3 karmic causes of retributive effects to be suffered by all 6 sense organs, he will fall into the abyssal hell, where he will endure untold miseries for countless eons. If at times he creates individualistic karmic causes of retributive effects to be suffered by his sense organs separately, he will fall into the 8 intermittent hell. If he kills, steals, and is carnal in body, mouth, and mind, he will fall into the 18 lesser hells. If he does not commit these 3 evil deeds, which involve body, mouth, and mind, but occasionally kills or steals, he will fall into the 36 lesser hells. If he commits only one of them with a single sense organs, he will fall into the 108 minor hells. Thus, all living beings, though creating their own causes of retributive effects, have to endure the same corresponding sufferings in the same hells, which are the products of their wrong thinking and which fundamentally do not exist. The 10 categories in the realm of hungry ghosts. Further, Ananda, if living beings violate the precepts, break the rules of bodhisattva discipline, destroy belief in the self-possessed Buddha nature, and create the above-mentioned karmic causes after being scorched in the hells for successive eons, they will have paid for all the wrong they have done and will be reborn in the realms of hungry ghosts. 1. If craving be the cause of their misdeeds, they will, after paying for their sins, take the form of whatever they meet on leaving the hells to become strange ghosts. 2. If lust be the cause of their misdeeds, they will, after paying for their sins, take form when blown by the wind on leaving the hells to become drunk ghosts. 3. If deceitfulness be the cause of their misdeeds, they will, after paying for their sins, take form when meeting animals to become animal ghosts. 4. If hate be the cause of their misdeeds, they will, after paying for their sins, take form when meeting worms and insects to become noxious ghosts. 5. If vengefulness be the cause of their misdeeds, they will, after paying for their sins, take form in the midst of misfortune and calamity to become cruel ghosts. 6. If arrogance be the cause of their misdeeds, they will, after paying for their sins, take form when meeting oppressed people to become starved ghosts. 7. If fraud be the cause of their misdeeds, they will, after paying for their sins, take form when finding themselves in dark places to become nightmarish ghosts. 8. If wrong views be the cause of their misdeeds, they will, after paying for their sins, take form when meeting spirits to become knights, sprites to become knights. 9. If unfairness be the cause of their misdeeds, they will, after paying for their sins, take form when seeing the light to become servant ghosts. 10. If disputation be the cause of their misdeeds, they will, after paying for their sins, take form when meeting mediums to become messenger ghosts to relay the news from the dead. And these beings are completely dominated by their passions, which cause their fall into realm of hells, where they are scorched dry by the flame of passion and form, which they will emerge as hungry ghosts. These states are the products of karma created by wrong thinking. If awakened to Bodhi, they will find that fundamentally these karmic states cannot be found in the profound, perfect, and bright mind. The 10 categories of animals, birds. Further, Ananda, when all karmic effects have been completely endured in the realm of hungry ghosts, that is, after the consequences of passions and thoughts have ended, they will be reborn as animals, birds, who meet their former creditors to repay outstanding debts. 1. Strange ghosts, after expiating their misdeeds in their realms, are mostly reborn as owls. 2. Drought ghosts, after expediting their misdeeds in their realm, are mostly reborn as unlucky creatures who foretell misfortunes and calamities. 3. Animal ghosts, after expediting their misdeeds in their realm, are mostly reborn as foxes. 4. Noxious ghosts, after expediting their misdeeds in their realm, are mostly reborn as venomous creatures. 5. Cruel ghosts, after expiating their misdeeds in their realm, are mostly reborn as tapeworms. 6. Starved ghosts, after expiating their misdeeds in their realm, are mostly reborn as creatures good for food. 7. Nightmarish ghosts, after expiating their misdeeds in their realm, are mostly reborn as creatures good for food. 7. Nightmarish ghosts, after expiating their misdeeds in their realm, are mostly reborn as creatures who provide materials for clothing. 8. Naives, after expiating their misdeeds in their realm, are mostly reborn as creatures to whom the future can be foretold. 9. Servant ghosts, after expiating their misdeeds in their realm, are mostly reborn as auspicious creatures. 10. Messenger ghosts, after expiating their misdeeds in their realm, are mostly reborn as domestic animals. And these hungry ghosts, after withering because of the scorching effect of the flame of their passions to repay their former debts, are thus reborn as animals, birds, and so on. These states are caused by their karmic misdeeds, but if they awaken to the Bodhi mind, they will find that the causes of the falsehood fundamentally do not exist. You have mentioned Bhikshuni fragrance of precious lotus, king crystal, and Bhikshu sanakshatra, but you should know that their evil karmas came from neither heaven nor earth, nor were they imposed on them by others. Since their evil deeds were self-made, they had to suffer from the consequences, which were the congelation of passing false thoughts in the Bodhi mind. For the Ananda, if these creatures, while paying their former debts, are made to repay more than is just, they will be reborn as men to reclaim the difference. If the creditors are men of good virtue and can repay the outstanding balance, they will keep their human state while doing so. But if they are men of little virtue, they will be reborn as animals to make good the amount received in excess. And you should know that if the indebtedness consists of money and labor, it will be cancelled as soon as it has been reimbursed. But if, in addition to recovering it, the creatures concerned are killed to provide food for the creditors, this will start between debtors and creditors an endless round of mutual killing and eating, which can be brought to an end only by practice of samatha, or when a Buddha appears in the world to teach them the dharma. The 10 categories in the realm of human beings. 1. You should know that owls, after repaying their former debts, are reborn as wayward men in the realms of human beings. 2. Inauspicious creatures, after repaying their former debts, are reborn as men with animal habits. 3. Foxes, after repaying their former debts, are reborn as vulgar men. 4. Venomous creatures, after repaying their former debts, are reborn as savages. 5. Tapeworms, after repaying their former debts, are reborn as wild men. 6. Creatures good for food, after repaying their former debts, are reborn as cowards. 6. 7. Animals providing materials for wearing apparel, after repaying their former debts, are reborn as servile men. 8. Creatures through whom the future can be foretold, after repaying their former debts, are reborn as literary men. 9. Auspicious creatures, after repaying their former debts, are reborn as intelligent men. 10. Domestic animals, after repaying their former debts, are reborn as men versed in the ways of the world. Ananda, these living beings, after repaying their debts, are reborn in the realm of human beings, because since the time without beginning, they have an account of their karma and perversion, killed one another, and have not met the Buddha or heard the right dharma. Hence their transmigration according to the law of samsara, they are most pitiable. The 10 categories in the realm of seers, rishi. Ananda, there are men who instead of cultivating the samadhi of right bodhi, practice immortality wrongly according to their false thoughts, thus preserving their thinking and bodies. They are fond of living in mountains, groves, and uninhabitable places. There are 10 classes of them. 1. Ananda, those men who died specially to preserve their bodies and thereby live long through dieting are called earthbound seers. Those who take herbs and fruits to preserve their bodies and thereby live long through taking medicine are called flying seers. 3. Those who take mineral products to preserve their bodies and thereby live long by means of alchemy are called the unhindered roaming seers. 4. Those who regulate their organic functions to preserve their bodies and thereby live long by means of proper breathing are called immaterial seers. 5. Those who make good use of controlling their saliva to preserve their bodies and thereby live long by means of their glowing spirituality are called heavenly seers. 6. Those who feed on the vital principle of nature to preserve the essence of form and thereby live long by absorbing natural purity are called all-entering seers. 7. Those who use incantations to preserve their bodies and thereby live long by means of occultism are called seers of the lesser Tao. 8. Those who concentrate on their thoughts to preserve their bodies and thereby live long by means of mental concentration are called illuminating seers. 9. Those who practice the integration of positive and negative principles to preserve their bodies and thereby live long by means of spiritual harnessing power of yoga are called spiritual seers. 10. Those who practice sublimation of their bodies and thereby live long by means of spiritual awareness are seers of the highest order. Ananda, these men regulate their minds, but do not practice the right bodhi and live for perhaps 1,000 and 10,000 years. They live on high mountains or desert islands and cut off all worldly connections. Their states still belong to the samsaric stream of wrong thoughts, and since they do not practice samadhi, when they have enjoyed their conditioned blessing, they will have to return to the lower planes of existence.